I'm going to step in and just do the pre-introduction. I'm Stacy Sellek from the Michigan Supreme Court Public Information Office, and I'm here to introduce Justice Elizabeth Clement, who is the Supreme Court's liaison to Michigan problem-solving courts. Justice Clement, if you want to get started.
Thank you, Stacy, and good morning, everyone. We are very excited to be here today to share our 2020 report on problem-solving courts. So just by way of background, problem-solving courts focus on providing treatment and intense supervision to offenders as an alternative to incarceration. These problem-solving courts include drug and sobriety, mental health, veterans, and other non-traditional courts. The Michigan Supreme Court, through our State Court Administrative Office, assists our trial courts in the management of our problem-solving courts by providing assistance with training, education, operational standards, monitoring, certification, and funding. Our training programs for judges and staff, we have 21 programs in 2020. Funding throughout the state and federal grant opportunities totaled nearly 17 million for fiscal year 2020. And our certification guidance involved 69 certifications in fiscal year 2020. Currently, Michigan has 199 total problem-solving courts that are accessible to all residents. I also want to make sure that we thank our partners in the legislature and the governor's office. We have a lot of support throughout the legislature and with the governor on problem-solving courts, because they also know how successful they are, and we really appreciate the ongoing support that we have from our partners in the other branches of government. So I have to talk about what we've experienced the last year. We have had a very challenging pandemic. And not only have our trial courts been challenged like never before, just to remain open for routine business, but our problem-solving courts have also had to pivot and get creative in order to help participants access the support and supervision they need to recover and rebuild their lives. Amid a year of unprecedented struggle, our problem-solving court teams were able to maintain the strong sense of community that really defines these programs. Technology, of course, played a huge part in the continuity of services and overall communication that took place between treatment court teams and all of the participants. But even more important than that technology or the physical tools employed to operate these programs is the human element at the heart of each one, made up of our judges, court coordinators, probation officers, law enforcement, prosecuting and defense attorneys, counselors, and our volunteers. The dedication and day-to-day investment of the professionals involved, people you will hear from shortly, is what truly makes a difference. What we know about our problem-solving courts is that they solve problems and they save lives. Increases in employment also lead to improved quality of life for graduates and their families. Lower recidivism rates mean safer communities and less incarceration, saving taxpayer dollars. Our Supreme Court is so grateful to the judges, court teams, and community partners who work so hard to help their neighbors get their lives back on track. Our veteran courts help put lives back on track and are one of our tremendous successes. Our military veterans face unique challenges that have really necessitated special programs for those who are justice involved. Some veterans return with invisible wounds like PTSD, inflicted by horrific experiences. And sadly, some veterans turn to alcohol or drugs to self-medicate, which can spiral into run-ins with the law. Our veteran treatment courts integrate principles from both drug treatment courts and mental health court models. On top of that, our veteran treatment court train volunteer veteran mentors to work with each participant. This may be partially responsible for the high retention rate, since military culture is built on supporting one another. Some brief data. Michigan is a national leader in our veteran treatment courts with 27 programs throughout our state. Unemployment among our veteran treatment court graduates dropped by 81%. Of the 263 veterans discharged from a program, 193 participants, or 73%, had successfully completed a program. And our veteran treatment courts had retained 90% of the participants over a 12-month period, which is a strong indicator of success in the program. It's now my honor to introduce one of our many passionate and incredible champions in the judiciary, our next speaker, Judge Shannon Holmes from the 36th District Court in Detroit.
Thank you and good morning. My name is Shannon Holmes, and I have the pleasure of serving as the executive presiding judge at 36th District Court with respect to all of our specialty courts. That includes our drug treatment court, our mental health court, our veterans treatment court. We also have a human trafficking docket, as well as street outreach court Detroit, and we also have community court. I have had the pleasure of presiding over the drug treatment court and the veterans treatment court since March 1st of 2017. And then under the leadership of the Honorable Judge Bill McConaughey, I had the pleasure of having all of our specialty courts come together under one umbrella and being asked to serve or appointed to serve as the executive presiding judge. With respect to specialty court, it is truly a passion that I have because I actually get the opportunity to see lives transform right before my very eyes. And so our program to date, we have approximately 99 cases, active cases, where we are serving individuals in Detroit, and not just Detroit, but also the Metro Detroit area. We have had a number of individuals graduate from our program, and you will hear from one of them later on. And they have been successful, and they've had the opportunity to experience that drug treatment court, problem solving court really works. Every April, the National Council for Alcoholism and Drug Dependence sponsors Alcohol Awareness Month. And believe it or not, one of the biggest issues that we face in problem solving court is alcoholism, alcohol dependency. But drug courts are there to help people get their lives back on track. And they have evolved over time, and they now include several models to serve specific offender populations. So in the state of Michigan, that evolution is reflected by the fact that we have a total of 135 drug treatment and sobriety courts. This includes 56 hybrid drug treatment sobriety courts, 36 sobriety courts, 13 adult drug treatment courts, 12 juvenile drug treatment courts, 8 family dependency courts, 9 tribal drug treatment sobriety courts, known as Healing to Wellness programs. And so we are doing a wonderful job in Michigan in restoring lives. And I'm so happy to be a part of a wonderful group of people that are doing it throughout the state of Michigan. It's so important for people to understand that when they hear about problem solving court, a drug treatment court, that it is not your ordinary probation. You have the opportunity to really connect with a team of professionals, from case managers, coordinators, attorneys, prosecutors, the judge, to help you get your life back on track. Yes, problem solving court is very demanding. You get to see the judge every 2 weeks. Who wants to see the judge every 2 weeks, right? But you get to do that. And in doing so, you have the opportunity to build a relationship with that judge and with the team of people who are on your team. And so not only do you see the judge every 2 weeks, sometimes every week. I've had individuals who've had to see me multiple times during the week, so that they can understand that this is not your ordinary probation. And so during that time, when you are in problem solving court, you are required to do drug testing. You are required to get treatment. You are required to address some underlying issues that may have resulted in your having to be in a judicial process. And so it is a win-win situation. We actually get involved in your home life because we conduct home checks. We go out to see to make sure that people are living in environments that are conducive to sobriety. Drug treatment court requires you to roll up your sleeves and dig really deep and be very honest with yourself about your self-assessments as well, so that you can do the necessary work to repair your life as well as the lives of those that you love. And so with the 2020 sobriety court, I'll give just a little bit of factual information. There are some key performance measures for drug and sobriety courts to show that it is successful. Of the 2,800 participants that have been discharged in fiscal year 2020 from a drug or sobriety court program, 1,904 participants, that's 68%, they have successfully completed the program, and that is outstanding. In addition, these individuals have been able to maintain steady employment, and they have also been able to go back into society and be productive citizens in society. We have also seen a significant drop in unemployment of 96% for adult drug court graduates and an 86% drop for hybrid court graduates. And so these numbers are outstanding. It lets us know that drug treatment court, specialty court, problem solving court, it does work. And so I'm glad to be a part of the team. I will take this time now to introduce our next speaker, who is David Wallace, the Chief Assistant Prosecuting Attorney in the Huron County Prosecutor's Office.
Good morning, and thank you, Judge Holmes. As mentioned, my name is David Wallace. I'm the Chief Assistant Prosecutor for Huron County. And for the past 6 years, I have been a member of the Thumb Regional Sobriety Court team with Judge Amy Gerhardt as the head of that team. This Regional Sobriety Court consists of 3 counties, Tuscola, Huron, and Sand Lake. And my role on the team is to ensure that participants are held accountable while the public remains safe. And we're doing this while the participants are taking the steps to change their lives for the better. Now, while we know that most impaired drivers will never commit their crime a second time, a dangerously large percentage will reoffend, continuing to put the public at risk and aggravating law enforcement and court resources. As you might imagine, as a Chief Assistant Prosecutor, I have no problem recommending jail as part of a sentence. And for years prior to the existence of a sobriety court, I would do just that. And if that person came back because of a new violation or a new crime, I would recommend more jail, thinking, well, now we'll really show them, we'll punish them, and that person will learn and change his or her behavior. But I was wrong. It didn't work because we weren't addressing the underlying issue, the person's dependency to that substance, to the alcohol or some other drug. Jail is an important tool for public safety, but it can only go so far, and that's why we have sobriety courts, to address the underlying issues in a comprehensive manner. Prior to working here in Huron County, I was the Senior Director for the National Center for DWI Courts, the national organization that trains teams on how to run sobriety courts across the country. And I had the opportunity to hear and see success stories from all parts of the country. I saw and heard about the changes individuals made and the success they found because of a sobriety court or a drug treatment court. I hear those same stories now here with the team that I am part of individuals who've never known sobriety except for maybe a short time, and now finding the joy of living a sober life, of being reunited with their parents or their children, of exciting employment or educational opportunities, or of taking on new challenges that they never thought possible. We know sobriety courts work. There is no program more successful at permanently changing the behavior of high-risk impaired drivers than sobriety courts. Besides actually seeing the participants change, how else do I know they work? Because of the research. The Supreme Court Administrative Office, or SCAO, keeps a database of all court cases, so it is possible to track recidivism rates and then compare it with offenders who've entered a sobriety court or a drug court to offenders who did not do one of those programs. And the research shows that graduates of adult drug court programs are nearly 2 times less likely to be convicted of a new offense within 3 years of admission to that program. And graduates of sobriety courts are more than 3 times less likely to be convicted of a new offense within those 3 years as well. That means those individuals are now law-abiding citizens, no longer creating new cases in the court system. They're no longer requiring law enforcement officers to respond to something they did, or for the jails to hold them while they're being prosecuted or having to sit in prison as a part of a sentence. It's a win-win for everyone, and the public is that much safer. Finally, you should know that Michigan is a role model for other states. While I was at the National Center, I saw how states around the country were implementing sobriety courts. And what I saw was that Michigan is one of the leading states in the country in its effort to create these life-saving programs and provide the support for their work. We can be very proud of what is being done here in this state. And now I want to thank you for your time and introduce Allegan County Community Mental Health Executive Director, Mark Witte.
Thank you, David. Again, my name is Mark Witte, Executive Director at Allegan County Community Mental Health in Southwest Lower Michigan. We offer core services to participants in the local mental health treatment court if they meet eligibility criteria for our services. That includes group, individual, case management services, psychiatric services, etc. For those who do not meet the eligibility for our CMH services, we refer them and coordinate care with community providers and though CMHs still provide some grant-funded support through the mental health treatment court. We have 2 staff who are directly involved with the 57th District Mental Health Court. One is a court case manager, and the other is a peer support specialist, a person with lived experience of dealing with a serious mental illness. We work in very close collaboration with Judge Scotchless and both prosecuting and defense counsel. And as I said, we provide liaison services with treatment providers who are serving the clients through other ways. The shared goal of both the court and our community mental health agency is to engage individuals with serious mental illnesses in treatment, as opposed to only involvement with the legal system. As you know, the involvement with the legal system can carry potentially lifelong consequences, especially when criminal records affect housing options, employment, access to healthcare, all of which can exacerbate the very mental illnesses for which we're trying to achieve recovery and treatment. Likewise, recidivism rates are more likely when someone's mental health needs are unmet. So the Mental Health Treatment Court offers support and access to services and resources that otherwise would not likely be an option without structured interventions. It's really our privilege to serve the community in this way. And with that, I will introduce Chief Judge Jocelyn Fabry of the Sioux Tribe of Chippewa Indians Tribal Court. Judge Fabry?
Thank you, Mark. So good morning again. My name is Jocelyn Fabry. I'm presenting to you from the Sault Ste. Marie Tribe of Chippewa Indians Reservation, where I'm proud to serve as its Chief Judge. I have the privilege and absolute joy of presiding over both an adult criminal healing to wellness court, as well as a family healing to wellness court, where we've taken the traditional drug court model and adapted them to meet our tribal community's needs. And we've had an adult criminal healing to wellness court here since the year 2000, making it one of the oldest in Michigan, and a family healing to wellness court since 2013. So what is a healing to wellness court? Well, it's a treatment court program that you will find in your tribal courts. We use the term healing to wellness to incorporate the notion that healing is the beginning, is the foundation of a wellness as an ongoing journey. Healing to wellness courts operate on the same principles as other treatment courts. Just like non-tribal treatment courts, healing to wellness courts are very structured programs. We tell people when they come in, we're going to be all up in your business, because we are, but we do that to help them, although they don't always believe that in the beginning, but I think they come to learn that along the way. But healing to wellness courts successfully meet our goals of increased public safety, again, through reduced recidivism, giving children their sober parents back, individual healing, and long-term sobriety. Tribal healing to wellness courts, just like all other problem-solving or treatment courts, get to the why someone is in front of us, not just the what they did to get them there. And so with that, every person's journey in a healing to wellness court, again, very structured with a high degree of accountability, is individualized. It's designed to provide the services and support that that person needs to meet their needs, rather than some cookie cutter approach. The healing to wellness treatment court model borrows from our traditional problem-solving methods used historically in our tribal communities. For instance, here in our tribal healing to wellness court, we rely heavily on our language and culture department and our traditional medicine program, of course, along with our behavioral health treatment providers, to design and establish individualized incentives and rewards for the positive behaviors exhibited by our participants, as well as individualized sanctions when we need to impose them for program noncompliance. This opportunity to provide culturally focused services and supports for our participants improves their likelihood of success. So tribes here in Michigan operate 9 different healing to wellness courts, and those range from adult criminal, juvenile, and family treatment courts. And our tribal courts work hand in hand with our state and federal counterparts, not to benefit just tribal citizens, but Michigan's communities at large. For example, here in Chippewa County, our local state courts have ordered Michigan citizens who also happen to be tribal members who are under their jurisdiction to complete tribal court's Healing to Wellness Court program as part of their state court sentence. Our most recent graduate was an example of this. She had a criminal case in our state district court, as well as a child abuse and neglect case in state probate court. She was at risk of losing her children. She was ordered to complete our tribal court's Healing to Wellness Court, both as a term of her probation and as part of her state court case service plan for her abuse and neglect case. After a year of very intensive services and oversight and support, she just recently graduated from our Healing to Wellness Court program, free of her addiction. She's working full time. She has stable housing. She chairs Wellbriety meetings. But most importantly, she has her 3 beautiful sons in her care who got their sober mama back. She's now working on becoming a peer recovery coach as well in our community. Our federal partners have done the same. Our federal district court has also offered our Healing to Wellness Court as a term of probation or parole rather than ordering incarceration. So you'll see this type of collaboration between state, federal, and tribal courts going on all across the state of Michigan, leveraging the community's resources to make all of our communities safer and healthier. Healing to Wellness Courts then are a benefit not just to the tribal communities that they serve and strengthen, but Michigan as a whole. Our graduates are proof positive that treatment courts work and recovery is possible. Miigwech.
Thank you so much, Judge Fabry, for sharing that perspective. And now I want to kind of throw it back to Judge Shannon Holmes, who's going to introduce our final speaker, a very special guest that we have. Judge Holmes.
All right, there we go. Thank you. I'm so excited to introduce an individual who did in fact complete our problem solving court, Anthony Jackson. He was a pleasure to work with. He's still giving back to the community. You're going to hear his story. And so I'm going to leave that time for him. Mr. Jackson, if you could at this time.
Thank you, Judge Holmes, and good morning to everyone. I appreciate the opportunity to come before you and speak today. Just want to talk about how I ended up into the problem-solving court in 2018 of April. I'm a track coach, and so we had a track meet, and it was in Ypsilanti, and I brought a designated driver. I tried to abide by the law, and when I looked over at my driver, he wasn't in a situation to drive. And by me drinking, I made a decision, which was the wrong decision, to get behind the wheel. And as a result, I ended up being arrested approximately about 5 miles from the destination where we left from. I woke up the next day in jail, and I was greeted by a detective. And I was like, oh my God, what did I do? Did I kill somebody? Why am I seeing a detective? And he said, you're being charged with a felony. And he said, I'm facing quite a long time. And I didn't understand it. Well, going back to 2002, I had my first drinking and driving, and I completed probation. And maybe about a month after completion, I got my second drinking and driving. And so what happened, I believe the laws had changed from 2002 to now, and they were able to bring back all those other prior drinking and driving. So it gave me my third, which I was then facing a felony conviction. And just to hear that and to sit back and think about all of the people that are going to be impacted by my decision to drink and drive. I have 2 daughters. I'm married. I coach kids from all around the state that make commitments to drive from Flushing, Michigan, from Flint, Detroit, Ypsilanti to come let me train them. I start thinking about all of these people that I'm going to affect and let down. Up until that point, I never considered myself an alcoholic. I wasn't the type of person that would drink every day, right? I can go months without having a drink. But after reading the big book, I finally discovered the type of alcoholic that I was. I was the one that can pick up and I couldn't stop. And that was my issue. It was scary. I've had some childhood issues. I had to seek counseling throughout this process to really get to the root of the problem, to find out when I drink, why do I drink so extensively? Why do I start thinking back to things that happened in the past and become emotional and become angry at the time? And just going through the counseling that was actually mandated by the courts, that truly helped me find out and get to the root of the problem on why did I start drinking. Going through the courts in the drug program, it helped me tremendously. You know, just to be able to see Judge Shannon Holmes every 2 weeks, to see Mr. Wade, to see Brian Griffin, and the support that they gave me. I didn't feel like a criminal coming into the court. I felt like this was a family that was there to really help me, get over my alcoholism, and to help me maintain my sobriety. I would mention things in my previous visits, and I would come back 2 weeks ago, and Judge Shannon Holmes would say, "Hey, how's that going?" And I'm like, "You remember that? You know, you got a lot of people on your docket, but you specifically remember that, and you're keeping me on track and on course." And that too was reassuring, you know, to know that I was in the right place. I decided to, you know, I do have a problem. I know now what type of alcoholic I am by going through this process, through this program, and I needed the help. And I said, I'm going to do everything in my power to get through this program successfully. I did not test positive, not one time, coming through the program in a 2-year span. And it made me feel really good. My life today is extremely different. I didn't realize how alcoholism lowered my self-esteem. And being in a position of leadership, that affected us. Today, I'm happy to say I run a vocational training school, and we are the #1 vocational training school in the Metro Detroit area. In the last 3 years, we've placed over 2,400 people into employment. My household is better than ever before. My wife is a counselor by trade, and so she's no longer diagnosing me. I'm fine. And so, you know, the courts, I'm forever giving back to this court. If it wasn't for this court, I don't know where I would be. If I was drinking throughout COVID, I didn't catch COVID, but I probably would have caught it. I may not have been here to talk to you today. And I want to really thank Judge Holmes for your leadership. I want to thank all of my probation officers, even the probation officers that I wasn't specifically assigned to, that gave me words of encouragement every time I came in. I want to thank each and every one of them. And this has been the best decision that I've ever made to go through this court. And I hope anyone else that decides to or have to go through the court really embrace it and understand that it's going to help you.
Thank you so much, Anthony, for being here to share your experience and your story and your information, your perspective on the treatment court model. We really appreciate that. So now I want to take a few minutes, and I know we've got some media on the call here, to see if any of our members of the news media who have joined us, if you have any questions. Oh, I see one coming in here. Let's see, Steve Carmody from Public Radio. How has the pandemic affected problem-solving courts? Did it reduce the number of cases handled by PSCs annually? Has it extended the time people spend in the PSC court process because of limits on in-person appearances? Judge Holmes, do you want to speak to that from your court's experience?
Yes, from my court's experience, from I think the first week of the pandemic, we had what you might want to call a shutdown because we built relationships with people in the program. We never closed our doors, maybe the physical doors of the courthouse, but we continued to work. We went virtual the second week of the pandemic. We continued to do all of our face-to-face visits, and it was all virtual. We had our hearings by way of Zoom and then aired live on YouTube. Our providers, we immediately reached out to them. They set up virtual services so that individuals would not have any interruption in treatment. Our testing facilities continued to test. People had to practice COVID safety with the washing of the hands, wearing of the mask, and keeping the distance. And so we continue to operate because the people who were in our program, they needed us. They could not afford to take a break. They could not afford to be away from court supervision. And they were people at that time who wanted, believe it or not, court supervision. They wanted our hands in their lives. And so under the leadership of Judge McConaughey, we continue to work and we never stopped working. When people say, did you get a break? You've been home collecting a check. That is not my story. We continue to work. And so no, our numbers are not down. We have continued to receive cases that were referred from judges who continue to work during the pandemic. We continue to receive referrals through our police department. Our chief, James Craig, works and is supportive of our program. We've continued to receive community referrals from some of our mentors. And so our numbers have maintained. They have still been steady.
While I have you, Judge Holmes, I think I'm going to shoot the next question at you. We have a follow-up question from Orlando Brand Williams from the Detroit News, who's asking, so some of the meetings are done in person during the pandemic. Is that the experience in your court?
It is. So if there is an emergency, because sometimes we have individuals, they need that face-to-face. And so there's a screening process that was taking place at 36th District Court, and it still does. If they need to come into the building, and there are individuals that they just need to come in, they're on the verge of jumping off the cliff. And so they can be screened. We get permission for them to come into the building, and they are allowed to come and do in person. We really try hard, especially because we're encouraging people to get the vaccine, like me and my team, we did it. And so, but if they need to come in, we do have a mechanism in place where they are able to access the building. And so everyone else, however, is virtual.
We have a follow-up question, again, from Steve Carmody from Michigan Public Radio, wanting to know if caseloads in problem-solving courts have increased during the pandemic. And Justice Clement, I wonder if you want to speak about this a little bit.
I don't have the exact data on comparing 2020 to 2019 and if the numbers have increased, but what I can say is that with the courts and the judges that I've interacted with, they never stopped accepting whoever was eligible and whoever they had room for. So our problem-solving courts do have limitations based on funding and how much staff they have to be part of the team and to do the work. And from the judges and staff that I've talked with and from working with SCAO, all of our teams around the state for all of our problem-solving courts, we're continuing to identify which participants were eligible and could get into the program. Obviously, it was a different starting point for some of these participants because instead of having that in-person interaction with the judge and the team, it had to start virtually. But I can tell you that our teams really pivoted from the beginning. We had Zoom licenses available to all of our judges and our tribal partners. And there was maybe a short period of time to transition over and work out the mechanics of how that was going to proceed. But I'm so proud of all of our courts and their staff around the state for being able to pivot in our regular courts and especially our problem-solving courts because they are so unique, and that in-person piece of it, and that as Judge Holmes said, that seeing individuals every 2 weeks and that face-to-face, we had to find a way to keep that going and keep the personal accountability via remote hearings, and I think that they did that tremendously. And so I'm not sure if the numbers show an increase. I know that our courts are constantly trying to make sure that they're at their max of what they're able to have in their programs, and then a number of our courts are asking for increases to expand their programs. So I think they've shown tremendous success.
Yes, thank you, Justice Clement. If I could just butt in for 1 second. Yeah, Steve Carmody, we can certainly get back to you with the details in terms of the exact numbers of the caseloads between 2019 compared to 2020. But I think as Justice Clement noted, there was this quick pivot to to Zoom hearings and to other steps to make sure people still got the support that they needed. And what's interesting there too is that actually increased costs because the drug testing in certain ways is more expensive, and other things that are more expensive. So it does take actually increased resources to do these programs in a pandemic. And I noticed too that we've got a couple of other questions kind of following on this. Yep. So we have a question about why juvenile treatment court recidivism outcomes aren't as strong as adult treatment court results. Maybe I'll ask for one of our participants to raise a hand on that one because I'm not quite sure who might be the best to field that. And if we don't have someone right now to speak to juvenile treatment courts, we can certainly get back to you on that question.
I'm happy to take unless somebody else wants to. So this is what I would say. Our youth are a very different population. And if we are taking the same model that we have for adult treatment court and applying that to youth, yes, our numbers are not going, our data is not going to show the same level of success. But I think maybe we need to redefine what success looks like. And if we have a youth in a treatment court that is not going to school at all and is involved with the justice system, and their participation in a juvenile treatment court has them back in school or getting counseling. I think that shows success. We have to remember that we're talking about youth, and there's a lot of growth that needs to happen, but before they become adults. And so I think we need to change the narrative and look at the data and try to extrapolate, really what we're trying to show as far as what success looks like. And I think we need to define it differently for youth.
We've got another question, Justice Clement, that I think I can shoot your way. Orlander from Detroit News is asking the total number of specialty courts in Michigan and what is the budget for them?
We have 199 problem-solving courts in Michigan that are funded and go through our state court administrative office. And last year, I believe that the number was 17 million. I can double check that, but I think that was the amount of money through state and federal funding.
Awesome. And I think we've kind of followed up. Are there any other? I don't see any other questions on the chat function here from reporters. I think, does anybody, any of the media still on, have any final questions before we conclude? Oh, Orlander has one for Orlander. If you want to unmute yourself to ask it, feel free to do that. Orlander. Oh, okay. She's going to follow up with Judge Holmes following the chat. Sorry. So she'll get some more detail from you, Judge Holmes. Well, we thank all of the news media for being here as well to ask all these great questions and share the stories about these wonderful programs. And we thank all of our speakers too. So we appreciate all of your participation and involvement in getting the word out. So thanks again.